So we recently invested in a device called an X-Carve. I'm sure you've seen it. It is a 3D capable CNC machine. I've used a similar product once before at a friend's house called a Carve, which is a much smaller version, totally enclosed, a lot less dust floating around, a lot quieter too because it's fully enclosed. But we wanted an opportunity to get into like sign making and stuff. And the only way that we could do that was to do the X-Carve. We opted for the middle of the road version, which is the 750 millimeter size, which allows us to do, I think, up to 19.5 by 19.5 signs, which may not seem that big, but when you look at it, it's actually quite large. And so far, it's been a fun tool to learn how to use. We have just barely scratched the surface with it, but I think that it's going to give us an opportunity to make a little bit of money on the side. That way we don't have to worry financially about my wife possibly having to go back to work. Here I am building the waste board. This is going to be the whole base plate, essentially, that the machine mounts onto. Because of my work schedule, I had to build this machine over a number of days. So here I am trying to eat some breakfast and get some build time in before I have to head off to work and do my full-time regular job. I tried to record everything, but we definitely missed some of the bits and pieces. And of course I had to cut it down too, because when I put in everything that we'd recorded, it ended up being almost a 30-minute video. And that's even doing time-lapse. As you can see here, the way that I set this up was time-lapse. So it took a long time to build. Like I said, we built it over multiple days. You can see my kids dive in to give me a hand getting this taken care of. They enjoyed watching me build it. They enjoyed helping me build it. And one of the first things that I carved when we got done was signs with each of their name that they could hang up in their room. This is actually Thanksgiving morning. I took a little time to get a little bit further on the project. We had some friends coming over at about 10:30 in the morning for breakfast, well, brunch. And so I wanted to get as many of the little pieces put in as possible before that happened. So my kids opted to give me a hand. And then we were able to bring it back out and put it back on the table later on, and I was able to work on it some more before we went over to our friend's house for Thanksgiving dinner. The kids eventually got tired of helping and wanted to go off and do other things, and I can't say I blame them. A lot of this work was very tedious. Lots of little screws, having to follow the detailed instructions online. Sometimes the pictures were for a previous version that had been out and not the current one that I have, so I had to do a little bit of interpreting in order to figure out exactly where things went. Definitely made some mistakes during the process and had to backtrack and rebuild and take apart and all of that stuff, but it's part of the learning process, and building the machine was nice because I feel like I have a good idea of how the machine runs, and so if something stops working, I have a better shot at troubleshooting it. And of course, support from Inventables is supposed to be fantastic. By the way, they're not sponsoring this video. I paid for this machine on my own. So this is where I got to Thanksgiving morning before our friends came over. I was able to get the crossbar built and then had to put it away. So right now we're looking at after those friends left and we cleared the table after Thanksgiving. That's what you're seeing right now is me trying to get a little bit more work done before we go over to our other friend's house for Thanksgiving dinner. So the wiring, while not difficult, I did have some issues, especially with the chain guard that you see me messing with right there. It took me a little while to figure out that the two pieces need to be done separately, one for the back and one for the side over by where the controller is. I had ended up putting both pieces together, attaching them, and then realized later on in the instructions that half of it was supposed to go to the control box. So I had to take a bunch of it apart and then reconfigure it and put it back together. But it all came out fine. Everything worked great. It was just a hassle on my part, and I wish the pictures and instructions had been just a little more clear. Not sure how I know how I missed it. It was just, it wasn't totally clear on which was supposed to go where at what point. Part of it was my assumption, and part of it was me jumping the gun a little bit. So. So here I am finishing up the wiring, trying to get everything set up before I start to build this, which is the sideboard. I've read a lot of people feel like this thing is a waste, that it's not necessary, and that very well may be. I appreciated having it. I like where it sits. I like the look of it. Could I have built something on my own? Yes, absolutely. But when I bought the machine, it was just easy to click the button to add it on, and I didn't feel like it was that much more expensive in order to make it happen. So once I got this built, put it out, I moved everything out into the garage with the help from my wife. We carried it out there, and I did not film myself making the controller box, but here is the very first carve that I was able to do. The machine was square, everything was set up perfectly, and it ended up running really, really well. Thanks for watching, hope you enjoy, and if you feel like it, click that subscribe button. We'll see you next time.